Good morning. The Commerce, Science, and Technology Transportation Committee will come to order. I want to welcome all our witnesses for joining us today. Today is a very important hearing date. We are going to be joined by, obviously, welcoming back our colleague and former colleagues, both Senator Nelson in his position to be nominated as NASA director, and our former colleague, Senator Hutchison, who I think is going to join us virtually. So can't think of two more active members, ranking members in the past on this committee, so we certainly welcome them. And certainly we have our former Commerce Secretary who's going to be joining us virtually. So it's a very big Commerce Day for those of us in the Commerce family and longstanding members of this committee to see our colleagues and people we've worked with on so many policy issues, and obviously a lot of enthusiasm by members who want to join in support of these nominations. So we'll be joined by a variety of senators here, and so Senator Rubio, who is with us already. So I want to say welcome to the families, to Grace and Ann, to all of those who are here to discuss today's nominees. We're covering everything from the digital and natural to the commercial worlds and into space today. So a very broad topic area. And we are going to be talking a lot about innovation. First, I'm pleased to consider the nomination of a dear friend, Bill Nelson, to be NASA Administrator. I welcome you, as I said, and your wife Grace and daughter Nan. You will be formally introduced by Senator Rubio and our former colleague, Senator and Ambassador Hutchison. But first, I'd like to say a few words. Senator Nelson has been a leader in space policy and has been an integral driver of NASA's strategic direction for decades. His commitment to public service and passion for space policy has been long known and makes him an incredible choice for this important role. He has a well-respected legacy on space policy, and that has, I think, today led to an endorsement by a litany of individuals, including former NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, Senator Rubio, Senator Hutchison, and many others. His reputation as a tireless advocate for the space program is well-deserved, and at this moment, NASA needs a great advocate that we all can be confident in. Today, NASA is at a critical juncture on the Artemis program. We are working towards an eventual crewed mission to Mars, where no nation has gone before, and right now we need certainty. It's paramount for the agency, and we need steady, thoughtful leadership, and undoubtedly I think you will fit that role well. I have to say I was surprised last week about the Human Landing System Development Contract, but I'll ask questions about that, and I have questions about how we reduce risk management in general at NASA. Also important in innovation and a leader, I believe, are important things on the endless technological possibilities that we see at NASA. I have to say, as a senator from a state that has now been dubbed the Silicon Valley of space, I welcome you to come and visit the Pacific Northwest. And I also would say, while you're there, can look at the various aeronautics issues that are part of NASA's mission as well. Aeronautic research and development is a very important aspect of the NASA mission. So I look forward to hearing your comments, Senator Nelson, on all of those issues, and I hope that we will get a chance to work together on these important missions. Next, we will hear from Lina, nominated to be the Commissioner for the Federal Trade Commission. I understand your husband, Shah Ali, and your parents, Tariq and Ulia, are here. Very much welcome you if you're, oh, there you go, thank you. You look too young to be her parents. Okay. She will be formally introduced by Senator Blumenthal, but first I want to briefly speak about Ms. Khan's dedication and her qualifications in this important role that she will be nominated to fill. Lina Khan is Associate Professor of Law at Columbia Law School. Her scholarship has received several awards and has been published by Yale Law Review, Harvard Law Review, Columbia Law Review, University of Chicago Law Review. Previously, Ms. Khan served as an advisor to the FTC, Commissioner Chopra, and counsel to the House Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Antitrust, Commercial, and Administrative Law. As Commissioner of the FTC, Ms. Khan will serve as one of the nation's leading antitrust officials and consumer advocates. And one of the key questions for the leadership of the FTC is, I believe, how do you fulfill that mission that the FTC has to protect consumers in the information age? A very big challenge. We know that Section 5 of the FTC on unfair and deceptive practices for competition and in an information age, how much that's been challenged. So we look forward to exactly how you can help us keep on track on this important mission. In 2011, John Perry Barlow observed as he watched Google and Facebook establish dominance, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. I think we all have to absorb exactly what that has meant for all of us over the last decade. I believe in the promise of the internet and the information age, but I also believe that we need a policeman, or in this case, a policewoman on the beat. We need to make sure these markets function and function correctly, and that is what a major role of the FTC is, obviously in partnership with DOJ. As an American legal scholar, Lina has been following anti-monopoly research for years, and she has become one of the leading legal experts on these issues. So I think it would do all of us a great deal of good to have her on the FTC. So I'm grateful for your willingness to serve and the important work that you have done in the past. Finally, I'm pleased to consider the nomination of Leslie Kiernan, who President Biden nominated to be General Counsel for the Department of Commerce. She's accompanied by her husband, Paul Kiernan, welcome, and former Secretary of Commerce, as I mentioned earlier, Penny Pritzker, will be providing a formal introduction for Ms. Kiernan. But I'd like to also say a few words about her experience. Ms. Kiernan has decades of experience representing and providing counsel for public and private entities, both big and small. And during the Obama administration, she served as White House Deputy Counsel to the President, where she advised on a wide range of compliance, risk management, policy oversight issues. In addition to her government service, she has worked for 20 years as a litigation partner at a national law firm and serves on the board of the Children's National Medical Center, a nationally recognized children's hospital here in D.C. So her confirmation comes at a time when the Department of Commerce is undertaking a very big task as it relates to our competitive avenues with the President's Build Back Better plan and with the economic challenges of an information age in a global economy responding to a COVID pandemic. So all of those things are big cross currents. So whether it's providing COVID-19 relief, including commercial and charter and tribal fishermen issues as one of the things you'd have to deal with, or administering and bolstering the new broadband program, the Minority Development Agency, or many of the other roles that Commerce might be given in the next several weeks, this will be a very big challenge. But simply put, we need the role of the U.S. Department of Commerce in our economic recovery to be as robust as possible, and I'm confident your nomination will help us do that. As General Counsel, your most important job, I believe, though, will be to protect the scientific integrity of our agencies, to keep politics out of science and decision-making, and to make sure that we continue to make progress on good science. Science is what holds all of us together when we have to make difficult decisions. So you have much experience here, decades of interpreting these laws and analysis, so I look forward to those issues, and I just might note the NOAA oversight of the Commerce Department. There are a lot of science and legal issues, and so we look forward to your input and oversight of that. So with that, I'll turn to my colleague, Senator Wicker, who's joining us remotely today.
Thank you very much, Senator Cantwell, for holding this important hearing on the nominations of our friend, former Senator Bill Nelson, to serve as NASA Administrator, Professor Lina to be a Commissioner of the FTC, and Ms. Leslie Kiernan to be General Counsel at the Department of Commerce. I want to welcome each of them to today's hearing, but especially Senator Nelson, who previously served with distinction as ranking member of this committee. We are also delighted to have former Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison joining us remotely to introduce Senator Nelson. Senators Nelson and Hutchison both set a great example for us by leading the effort to pass bipartisan NASA authorization legislation, a tradition that I hope our committee will continue this Congress. We are also glad to have our colleague, Senator Marco Rubio, to provide another introduction for Senator Nelson, since the two of them represented the state of Florida together in the Senate for several years. Finally, it's good to have my friend, former Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker, joining us virtually to introduce Ms. Kiernan. My constituents and I care deeply about making sure NASA has strong and capable leadership. As you know, Stennis Space Center is located in my home state of Mississippi. Senator Nelson has extensive experience in setting the goals and policy priorities for NASA, beginning with his tenure as chairman of the Space Subcommittee of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, a post he held for 6 years. During that time, he personally flew on the 24th flight of the space shuttle, participating in scientific experiments and other work while in orbit. Senator Nelson also served as both the chair and ranking member of this committee's Space and Science Subcommittee. And as I previously noted, he was also ranking member of the full committee. Through these leadership positions, he was instrumental in shepherding the passage of numerous NASA authorization bills, and I know he will be an important voice as we work toward passage of the next one. Professor Lina has been nominated to fill an important vacancy as commissioner of the FTC. Yesterday, we held an oversight hearing with the 4 current commissioners of the FTC. We discussed important topics, including the commission's role in reining in big tech, the future of its Section 13B authority to obtain monetary redress, and the role the FTC has to play in enforcing college athlete name, image, and likeness rules and other sport issues. I look forward to hearing Ms. Khan's views on these and other topics today. Ms. Leslie Kiernan is the President's nominee to serve as General Counsel at the Department of Commerce. She has a long record of service as an attorney in government and private practice. Her experience should be a strong asset for Secretary Raimondo and the department as a whole. The Commerce Department has a broad portfolio and oversees numerous sectors of our economy, including fisheries, weather forecasting, and federal agency allocation and use of spectrum. We need an accomplished general counsel at the department who can provide sound legal advice and direction in all of these areas. I appreciate that all of today's nominees are willing to serve in these posts, and I'm eager to hear their testimony and responses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. And so now we're going to give a chance to all of the people who want to make formal introductions of all of the nominees to make those introductions. And so that we'll go to Senator Rubio, then Senator Hutchison, then Senator Klobuchar, Senator Blumenthal, and finally Secretary Pritzker. So Senator Rubio, welcome to the committee. We know you come from a big ocean state, and we'll continue to count on you to work on a lot of policies for us. And so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we're surrounded by an ocean, so I appreciate. I appreciate that, Madam Chairwoman and the ranking member. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to be very brief because our nominee for NASA Administrator is no stranger to the Senate or to this committee. I think we all know well his passion for the space program is unparalleled. It's a passion that began when he was a member of the House and that continued during his time here in the Senate. And irrespective of who was in charge of the Senate, Bill Nelson was always at the front of the pack in terms of dealing with the space program. And again, I don't need to tell my colleagues that. You all experienced it firsthand. He's no stranger as well. There's no better advocate for arguing the importance of the program, what it means to America's industrial base, what it means to research and development, and frankly, what it means to inspire a nation. Great nations do great things. And it's in space where America has made its mark, perhaps, or not perhaps, certainly more than the rest of the world, and where we would continue to want to lead. And no one's a better advocate for that. No one can describe it better. No one's lived it more than he has. And then, of course, I think one of the most important things that we, oftentimes when we sit, and I sit on the other side of that dais in different committees, you get these nominees and you hear great things about them, but you don't really know them. Everybody here knows Senator Nelson. You know his character. You know his integrity. You served alongside him. So that is not a question that needs to be answered at all. And I think this is an inspired choice. I can't think of a better American alive to serve in this role. I'll close with this. I'm a big fan of professional football. And every year, the Professional Football Hall of Fame meets. And what happens is all 32 teams have usually the senior beat writer is the person who is in charge of voting on the Hall of Fame committee. And when the nominee as a coach or a player is someone who played in that market. That person's in charge of standing up and forwarding the nomination. They make a presentation, usually a 5-minute video about the player's playing career. Every now and then, however, there is no such process. The person, and I recall one in particular, and that is Don Shula, the winningest coach in NFL history, the late Don Shula. And when he was presented to the Hall of Fame as a nominee a year or two after his retirement, the senior beat writer didn't have a video presentation, didn't have a 5-minute testimony. He simply stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Don Shula," and he sat down. So, ladies and gentlemen of this committee, Bill Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rubio. We'll now turn to our former colleague. We're so pleased she can join us, ranking member of this committee, longstanding contributor to many, many policies for the Commerce Committee, Ambassador Hutchison.
Well, thank you so much to my friends, Chair Cantwell, Ranking Member Wicker. I loved my time on the Commerce Committee as ranking member, and I so appreciate being asked to come back because I worked so long with Bill Nelson. Now, I will not be able to top what Marco Rubio has just said. That was a great introduction and apt recognition of what Bill has done in this particular area. So I am here to say how much I endorse the nomination of the president for Bill Nelson for this important job. And especially because I have worked with him on all of the NASA authorization bills that were during our time. And I know as a colleague and a friend that the president has chosen the right person to lead this agency. In 2005, Bill and I joined forces to author the NASA Authorization Bill of 2005, which authorized for the first time the use of commercial cargo and crew capabilities, and that bill set forth an official policy of NASA that should encourage commercial use and development of space to the greatest extent possible. 5 years later, we again put our heads together to co-author the NASA Authorization Act of 2010. While the 2005 Act, we laid the framework for increased commercial partnerships, there were still many who were skeptical about NASA relying on a nascent commercial space industry. Bill worked tirelessly to convince lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans, that commercial companies could take over transportation for crew and cargo in low Earth orbit, while NASA was pushing in the deep space area. His work paid off. Bill and I united our colleagues in the Senate and House and gained support for the 2010 authorization bill, which invested in both commercial space program that we have today and also NASA's own deep space exploration capabilities, which we were pushing forward to do. It's incredible to see the path chartered in 2010 that is being borne out today, one of both commercial partnership and continued investment in our nation's space exploration capabilities. Very soon, NASA and SpaceX Dragon capsule will take off from Kennedy Space Center. The Crew 2 mission will mark the third commercial crew flight to the International Space Station, and NASA will soon do the same thing with Boeing and its Starliner spacecraft. It was a competition that we set up for the commercial industry in that 2010 bill. Within the next year, NASA will launch the Space Launch System and Orion. These are also authorized in 2010 to eventually return U.S. astronauts to the moon under the Artemis program. But the challenges aren't in the rear view. As NASA embarks on its Artemis program, the agency needs a leader who not only has a long-standing understanding of NASA's goals and missions, but someone with political leadership skills who can build consensus and chart a bold path forward for NASA. and our country. Bill has the unique experience of actually flying in space and an unsurpassed record of supporting and reforming the agency, keeping it vital through the bold policy priorities, including critical science, exploration, aviation, and technology missions. Bill is the leader that NASA needs now. I hope the committee will act expeditiously and favorably on his nomination to get our programs up and going and looking forward. Thank you so much, and it is great, and I'm so honored to be back with my former colleagues and those of you who are serving today. Thanks for this welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Hutchison. And again, I think it speaks very highly, Senator Nelson, of your nomination that two of your former Republican colleagues are here to join us and obviously speak volumes about the work that you did on this specific policy area. We'll now turn to more formal introductions of the next nominee, Lina Khan, and I will turn to Senator Klobuchar to make her remarks.
Well, thank you very, very much, Chairwoman Cantwell, and as well as Ranking Member Wicker. Congratulations to all the nominees, including Senator Nelson, and I see his family. It's good to see you again. And today I have the honor of introducing Professor Lina Khan as President Biden's nominee to be a commissioner at the Federal Trade Commission. She is joined by her husband, Dr. Shah Ali. Thank you for your work during this pandemic, and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Khan. I'm honored to have you with us today, and you must be very proud of your daughter. Lina Khan came to the United States when she was 10 years old, and she began her career as a journalist. Her experience digging deep, analyzing businesses, and searching for the truth brought her to competition policy and consumer protection as she investigated and wrote about harms that monopolization can inflict on American consumers. Now, as the daughter of a reporter and a sports writer myself, I think that journalism experience is a really good thing. After her career as a journalist, Lina moved on to a different kind of public service as an advisor in the office of Commissioner Rohit Chopra, who we saw yesterday at the hearing we had in this very room at the Federal Trade Commission. There, Professor Khan crafted policy and cases from the inside. Then, as the legal director at the Open Markets Institute, she sought to refresh decades-old antitrust law for the modern digital era, pioneering new thinking about how competition policy impacts the tech giants of our day and what changes need to be made to make a difference. Lina ultimately went on to the House of Representatives, where she played a key role in the development of their groundbreaking Gatekeepers report. As part of that job, she also helped to oversee the FTC, an agency where, with the committee's support, she can soon be part of. Finally, Professor Khan brings serious legal chops to the competition policy table. She is an associate professor of law at Columbia University, and her work has been published in, well, just about everywhere. As the world has noticed, her article on Amazon, which she wrote while still in law school, went viral, and not many law review articles do that, and was described by the New York Times as reframing decades of monopoly law. And given the interest of this committee, from left to right, from liberal to conservative, in taking on antitrust and privacy issues, I can't think of a more qualified person to be considered for the FTC. Lina Khan is, in short, an out-of-the-box thinker, a pioneer in competition policy who is already a noted expert in her field. Her deep understanding of how markets influence our lives and how the law should function is exactly what we need at the FTC. While the FTC has done some remarkable work, including the recent filing of the major case against Facebook, for too long, mergers have gone unchallenged and dominant firms have accumulated levels of market power that we have not seen in a century. These are some of the most important issues of our day. They are complicated, and Lina Khan will bring a critical perspective to the FTC. She's committed to using the agency's authority to help solve real problems, and she has been committed to public service, as we can see throughout her career. I hope both committee Democrats and Republicans alike will look forward to working with her on ensuring that consumers get the benefit of free and fair competition, that our innovative spirit in this country brings new products and services to markets, that we continually rejuvenate capitalism, and that Americans are protected when they buy their groceries, go to a health clinic, buy their medicines, and yes, go on Facebook. We need Lina Khan at the FTC, and I urge my colleagues to support the nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Now we'll have also an introductory statement by Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of the nominees here today. A particular welcome to our colleague, Bill Nelson, who has once again demonstrated his extraordinary judgment and wisdom by inviting his beautiful and accomplished family to be with him today. We welcome you and look forward to working with you. I have the tremendous honor to introduce Lina Khan, whom I've long admired, and I want to thank her family as well for their support. Ms. Khan, your story is so inspiring. An immigrant story, an American story about extraordinary accomplishment, but also giving back to America in such wonderfully important and life-changing ways. You've already helped countless people through your insights and expertise, your amazing writings in so many academic journals, but also your involvement in public service in this Congress, in both the Senate and the House. So you have deep expertise and insight, tremendous experience, and frankly, the guts and grit that you've demonstrated already to stand up to powerful corporations and special interests that now threaten competition in this country. And the fact is that our nation is in an economic crisis. We need to revive our economy, but we need to do it in a way that protects consumers. And in fact, consumers have suffered deeply as a result of this pandemic. The frauds and the deception that has been involved in many of the schemes that we see on the internet right now. And the nation is also in a privacy crisis. We've seen the intrusions and the breaches of data that have occurred. We're in a competition crisis. No one has described it better than you have. And we thank you for calling attention to the effects of unchecked consolidation and monopolization that preceded the pandemic, but have now been aggravated and highlighted during it. So we are at a unique moment for our nation's economy, one of recovery, but at the same time seeking greater equity and competition that benefit consumers ultimately. And you are indeed the right person for this agency right now as the chair of the subcommittee on consumer protection in this committee and a member of the antitrust subcommittee on judiciary, so ably led by Senator Klobuchar. I look forward to working with you on all of these areas, and I look forward to the leadership that you will bring to protecting consumers and competition as a member of the FTC. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. And now, certainly not least, our former Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Pritzker. Thank you so much for joining us to speak to the nomination of Ms. Kiernan. We certainly miss you, and thank you for your service.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Chairman Cantwell and Ranking Member Wicker and the other members of the committee for offering me the opportunity to speak today about my good friend, Leslie Kiernan. I'd also first like to congratulate the other nominees as well, including my friend and former Senator Bill Nelson and Lina Khan. Let me begin by saying that serving as our nation's 38th U.S. Secretary of Commerce was the honor of a lifetime. And I really want to thank this committee for giving me that opportunity to serve our country. I thoroughly enjoyed working with each and every one of you on the critical work to build a stronger economy for all Americans. And I really appreciated your partnership and your oversight role of the Department of Commerce. So again, I'm here today because I'm really pleased to be able to speak about my friend and former colleague, Leslie Kiernan, with whom I served in the Obama administration. She's someone for whom I have such great respect and admiration. Without hesitation, I 100% support her nomination and know she will be, if confirmed, a stellar general counsel for the Department of Commerce. Leslie's a person of unquestioned integrity, deep legal expertise, and a long track record of proven results demonstrated over the course of her diverse career in the private sector, in government, and in the nonprofit worlds. She's also someone who's quite adept at dealing with high pressure situations and multitasking, given that she's the mother of 4 wonderful children. Fundamentally, Leslie is a servant leader who has robust experience in a broad range of complex legal issues that will serve the Department of Commerce well. Her expertise ranges from data protection and cybersecurity to environmental law and corporate governance, just to name a few areas. Make no mistake, Leslie is a lawyer's lawyer. She's hired by her clients for her astute expertise and sound judgment, and I know she will apply the same shrewd command of the law and judgment to the role of general counsel. Over the course of her career, Leslie's demonstrated a commitment to bipartisanship, thoughtfully representing both Democrats and Republicans. She's developed a reputation for excellence, proficiency, and discipline. Frankly, she's just a darn good lawyer. So it comes as no surprise that she is being nominated to such a crucial role. If confirmed, Leslie will work alongside thousands of public servants at the Department of Commerce, whom I deeply admire and respect. Together, I am confident they will work tirelessly to fulfill the agency's critical mission to spur economic growth and job creation for more Americans. Put simply, I am very proud to know Leslie Kiernan. I trust her judgment, and I'm grateful for her willingness to once again serve our country. The Department of Commerce's success, as so many of you have said today, is our country's success. In my opinion, Leslie will serve both the department and Secretary Raimondo with distinction. So thank you again for inviting me to join you today and for the important work that all of you do on behalf of our nation. I'm delighted to introduce to the committee Leslie and Kiernan, and I enthusiastically endorse her swift nomination.
Thank you, Secretary Pritzker. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to come back and make sure the Department of Commerce gets a strong team of people working with them. We appreciate that. Now we're going to actually turn to the nominees. Again, thank you for your willingness to serve, and we're going to start with you, Senator Nelson. Again, formally welcome to the committee, and glad you're here to assume, hopefully, this role and responsibility.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And if I may submit my testimony in writing for the record, and if I may, Madam Chair, just address the committee directly.
Go ahead. Yes.
First of all, I want to thank my family, my spouse of going on 50 years, Grace, our daughter, Nan Ellen, and virtually joining us from Orlando, our son, Bill Jr. I want to thank the co-panelists here, and congratulations to you and everything that the two of you, Ms. Khan, Ms. Kiernan, that you have already accomplished. It's very impressive. Thanks to my former colleagues. There's a a catch in my throat when I think about the wonderful times that I have had with you all, and the friendships that have been bred over the 18 years that I was privileged to serve here. And so your comments are just so gratefully received. But now we have a big task ahead of us. And if you all decide that you're going to confirm me, I look forward to this with gusto and with enthusiasm. There's a lot of excitement going on in NASA right now, and you all have seen it. You've seen it a couple of days ago with the flight of the little helicopter on a celestial body some 80 to 100 million miles away, depending on the orbits that Earth and Mars are in. You've seen it, as stated by the chairman and the ranking member, of the return of American astronauts launching on American vehicles from American soil. Later this year, we're going to see it in the launch of the James Webb Telescope, a $9 billion instrument on top of an Ariane rocket situated at the equator at the European Space Agency's launch center in French Guiana. You're going to see that telescope replacing the Hubble that has already opened up so many new things to us in the universe. And it's going to look back in time almost to the beginning of the source of light, millions and millions and billions of light years away. It's an exciting time. And at the end of the year, perhaps early next year, you're going to see the largest rocket ever, most powerful, launched, that is going to be the workhorse on the program of going back to the moon and then on to Mars, which was a multi-administration project. These projects are not one administration. They're many. It's like building an aircraft carrier. You start it and it'll take you years down the road, and it has to be continued regardless of who's in the majority, regardless of who's in the presidency. And so too, we are seeing this, and we will see the fulfillment of these programs. And so if you ask me what is my vision for the future of NASA, it is to continue for us to explore the heavens with humans and with machines. And there is a lot of excitement. Now, corollary to that is the fact of look at what in developing machines that can take humans and robots out to explore, look at what is being developed in technology and science and engineering and mathematics. First of all, you're going to see a spin-off of a generation of newly educated young people. Think back to the Apollo program and think about how that rippled through several generations of young people in STEM that made us technologically the most advanced of all the nations on the planet. That can be happening again. And pressing the envelope on the edges of science and discovery. Look what is happening. Think of the spinoffs that is coming out of this for our everyday lives. I've got to reach into my pocket here and tell you, just recently I was reminded of one of the greatest spinoffs. It's the camera in here, now used by billions of people on the planet. This camera was developed for the Earth observing satellites that NASA has built and has operated. And I could go through so many other things. The Canadian arm, first on the space shuttle and then now on the space station. Those robotics. Think of the robotic surgery that I venture to say some members of this committee may have already experienced, including your witness. That has all been a spin-out out of NASA technology. Madam Chair, I am mindful of your time. I could keep going on, and it's hopefully in print in my opening statement that I've submitted to you. I'm going to stop right there. I want to hear from these other distinguished folks. Thank you for the privilege. I want to say one other thing. I think the fact that Marco and Kay would make a statement tells you a lot about NASA. Hopefully it tells you something about me in trying to bring people together regardless of party to build consensus in order to get something done. I want to thank Jim Bridenstine, the former administrator, who did a remarkable job under difficult circumstances. And as a result, he became very popular in NASA. I want to thank him for his friendship, his very gracious comments to me. And so that's the spirit of NASA, to keep us going in a bipartisan, indeed nonpartisan way. In this regard, NASA is like the Department of Defense. There should be no partisanship as we venture forth exploring new horizons. Thank you for the privilege of being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Nelson. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your passion. We definitely feel it, and we think it will be put to good use. We'll now turn to Ms. Khan for her statement. Again, welcome. Welcome to your family. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
For the opportunity to be here today, especially with such esteemed panelists. I am deeply honored to have been nominated by President Biden to serve as a commissioner of the Federal Trade Commission. And I am so grateful to my family, friends, colleagues, mentors, and students for their encouragement and support. I'd especially like to recognize my parents, my brother, and my husband who are here with me today, and my other brother, parents-in-law, and grandmother who are all watching online. For the last decade, I have focused on studying and investigating markets across our economy and examining the laws that enable honest and fair competition. I first started this work as a journalist and policy analyst, where my job was to document the state of competition across industries and to uncover the abusive business practices that excessive concentration can enable. I spent years studying markets ranging from chicken farming and airlines to aluminum and book publishing, and learning from entrepreneurs and small businesses about the obstacles that they face. This work taught me the importance of fair competition and the critical role that the antitrust laws play in encouraging business dynamism and promoting widespread prosperity. I have built on this work as a legal scholar, where my focus has been to examine the history of America's anti-monopoly laws. This history reveals our long tradition of safeguarding core liberties through promoting competitive markets and the wide arsenal of tools we have used to protect our economy and our democracy from unchecked monopoly power. Studying this tradition lets us mine our past for lessons we can apply when navigating challenges today. I have also had the chance to work on competition issues through government service, first at the Federal Trade Commission, and most recently as counsel to the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Antitrust, Commercial, and Administrative Law. While in the House, I helped lead a 16-month bipartisan investigation into digital markets, a top-to-bottom empirical review of how these markets are functioning. Pursuing this investigation underscored the important work that enforcers and lawmakers must do to ensure that long-standing laws are keeping pace with new technologies and reflecting current business realities. Congress created the Federal Trade Commission to serve as a guardian of fair competition and to protect consumers, workers, and honest businesses from unfair and deceptive trade practices. If confirmed, I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners, the career staff, this committee, and the broader public to pursue the agency's mission with vigor and a deep commitment to serving the American public. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. Ms. Kiernan, again, thank you. Welcome. We look forward to hearing your remarks.
Chair Cantwell, Ranking Member Wicker, and members of the committee, I'm honored to appear before you today as President Biden's nominee to serve as General Counsel of the Department of Commerce. I am grateful for and humbled by the trust and confidence that President Biden and Secretary Raimondo have placed in me. If confirmed, I will work hard to justify that trust. I would also like to thank the committee for considering my nomination, and I appreciate the opportunity I've had to meet with members of your staff before this hearing. I want to thank Secretary Pritzker for those very gracious remarks. I appreciate her support and value her friendship. I also want to thank my husband, Paul, and our 4 children, Caroline, Kate, Christopher, and William, for their encouragement and support. The Department of Commerce has approximately 47,000 employees working across a wide range of offices and bureaus. The people of the Commerce Department are working on communications policy, international trade, weather, fisheries, and patents. They help foster innovation by setting standards and conducting foundational research. They are united by their mission of promoting the conditions for economic growth and opportunity. Their work touches the lives of every American, probably every day. The department's ability to fulfill its mission is critically important as the country seeks to recover from the economic damage caused by the pandemic and to protect American competitiveness from the unfair trade practices of China and other nations. Together with the more than 300 career lawyers and other professionals who make up the Office of General Counsel, the General Counsel plays a critical role in advancing the department's mission by providing high-quality legal advice and counsel to the Secretary and officials throughout the department. As the department's chief legal officer, the General Counsel is responsible for ensuring that the laws Congress has enacted are faithfully implemented and enforced. The General Counsel represents the department before other agencies, works with the Department of Justice to represent the Commerce Department in court, and provides leadership, guidance, and support to the many talented and committed lawyers who work at the department. I believe my experience in the private sector and in government has prepared me for this position and given me an understanding of the appropriate role of a general counsel. I've worked for over 30 years in private practice and in government. Early in my career, I worked on the staff of the House Committee on Banking, Finance, and Urban Affairs. I have private practice and government experience in a wide range of legal matters, providing leadership and advice on litigation, enforcement, ethics, and compliance. I also had the privilege of serving as Deputy Counsel to the President in the Obama-Biden administration, where I provided advice on a variety of legal, policy, and oversight issues, and worked closely with the General Counsels and other senior lawyers of departments and agencies throughout the government. I have seen how important it is that agencies work together and that everyone is guided by doing what the law and the Constitution require. Rigorous legal analysis and good lawyering are essential if government is to work best for the people. Through my experiences in government and in the private sector, I have learned a lot about leadership, problem solving, and the importance of collaboration. I'm a strong believer in teamwork, and if confirmed, pledged to seek opportunities to work closely with this committee and to be responsive to your requests for information and assistance. This is a particularly interesting and exciting time to work in the Commerce Department as it supports innovation and opportunities for all Americans and businesses. The department requires and deserves the best possible legal advice as it navigates the challenges it faces and the opportunities it is presented. If confirmed, I commit to you that I will do my best to provide that advice and counsel. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kiernan, and thank you for persevering. I think some air system went on in the middle of your testimony, so if everybody hears a low hum, that's what it is. We'll just have to persevere through this, and so they're trying to address it. I'm sure it's not great for the broadcast entities that are here. Oh, well, it's a little lower. Anyway, we'll keep working on it. Now we're going to turn to questions, and obviously, if the witnesses could help us out here a little bit, since there's 3 of you. Senator Nelson, I wanted to start with you. Obviously, NASA has a big tradition of ensuring resiliency in commercial programs by using multiple competitors and maintaining what's called dissimilar redundancy. So I want to know that you'll commit to rapidly providing Congress with a plan for assuring that kind of resiliency out of the Human Lander program.
I do.
Thank you.
Competition is always good.
Thank you. And on the workforce issue, Artemis is a great mission. Now there are 18 astronauts that are going to be competing for that. There are a few from the state of Washington. We're very proud of them. But I think importantly, it shows that in 2019, women only made up 1/3 of NASA's workforce and 16% of the senior scientific workforce. If confirmed, will you promote diversity of roles for women in technical and leadership roles throughout NASA?
Yes, ma'am, and already have, and I strongly recommended to the White House that the deputy be a woman who is exceptionally qualified, and indeed, I think you will see that in the person that was announced last week, Pam Melroy, a former astronaut commander. Before that, she was Air Force colonel, test pilot. After NASA, she went to the FAA and then to DARPA. And so she is an incredibly prepared person as well as being a delightful person. And she and I will operate as a team. Although the White House hasn't announced yet, they are, I think, looking at the 3rd person in NASA, and you only Senate confirmed 3, the chief financial officer. And I believe that they are looking at whom we have recommended also a woman.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Khan, one of the things that the committee as ranking member we did was issue a report on journalism and the market impacts that local journalism has faced in the transformation to the information age. Google and Facebook play dominant roles as portals to news and media. I think you probably understand the challenges that these sectors have faced given this level of activity. Do you think that the FTC should review Google and Facebook's use of journalistic content without compensation under the unfairness standard that the FTC has?
You want to hit your mic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and congratulations to you and your staff for such an incisive report. I think, everything needs to be on the table. Obviously, local journalism is in crisis, and I think the current COVID moment has really underscored the deep democratic emergency that is resulting when we don't have reliable sources of local news. So absolutely, this would be something that I would hope to focus on at the commission.
What uncompetitive practices do you see going on?
So I think there are 2 major factors, one of which is the fact that, increasingly news publishers are dependent on a few gatekeepers to disseminate their news and to disseminate their information. And so a single change in an algorithm can plummet readership and subscriptions for any publisher. And so I think there are some concerns generally there about the arbitrary whims and the arbitrary power that these firms can exercise. I think there are also serious concerns about concentration within the digital ad market, as well as vertical integration that has potentially created some conflicts of interest. Some of the lawsuits that were filed last year, I think, underscore these issues, as well as potential, criminal activity as well. So I think it'll be important to continue seeing how those lawsuits play out as well.
Thank you. Well, we're going to continue our work here because we think you know, we believe in the model that, that our markets, our economy needs perfect information. That's what basically generates true data. But if you think that markets need perfect information, well, if you have such a decline in journalism, you're not going to get perfect information. So we definitely want a diversity of voices and FOIAs and holding people accountable and all of those things. So thank you. Ms. Kiernan, one of the key challenges that we face when we're dealing with NOAA and or other aspects of commerce is responsibilities given to the organization and timely allocation of those resources. So I could say, for example, tribal broadband money or NOAA disaster commercial assistance. Will you commit to making sure the agency works closely with all of us on timely distribution of resources, obviously accurate distribution, but timely, because so many of these represent very small entities who are counting on these resources?
Yes, Senator, absolutely.
And will you commit, I mentioned in the beginning about the scientific integrity, in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, the Inspector General for the Department of Commerce found that the former acting general counsel interfered with science, even going as far to draft public statements rebuking career scientists at the National Weather Service. If confirmed, will you ensure that the office of your general counsel office always follows science?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Wicker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Nelson, I think it's wonderful to see both you and Senator Hutchison back before the committee today. And it speaks volumes that having completed her introduction, she remains on the call remotely as a supporter. So welcome back to both of you. Let me ask about the Artemis program. I was excited about the idea of a lunar landing in 2024 and a Mars landing in 2029. That timetable has slipped. Could you discuss that just briefly and discuss how we move quickly but safely and prevent the timetable from slipping even further?
Yes, sir. Understand that they won't let me get into the innards because I still can't talk to NASA until you all may decide to confirm me. However, the press conference and the public statements that were made by the deciding authority on the competition for the first landing, human landing, crew landing on the moon, as it was explained by the NASA official making that determination, the timetable for 2024 is still there with the awardee. And I think we all have to recognize that space is hard and it's an ambitious timetable, but that is what has been stated. Now, coming after that, this is a demonstration of landing a crew on the surface of the moon and returning them safely. After that, there's a lot of activity that can go on before we eventually create the spacecraft that will go to Mars. And those are going to be future competitions. The chair asked about competitions, and those competitions will be there as articulated by the deciding authority on this competition. So I think you may be pleased that we're going to see that timetable try to be adhered to, but recognize that with some sobering reality that space is hard.
Thank you very much, Senator. And I hope that optimistic answer turns out to in fact, be accurate. And I want to do what I can to help it be accurate. Let me turn quickly then to Lina Khan. Thank you for your willingness to serve. You wrote an interesting paper entitled Amazon's Antitrust Paradox, where you discuss applying common carrier regulations to big tech. Are you familiar with Justice Thomas's recent publication with regard to that? And do you think common carrier regulations can be applied to social media companies like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube? And please explain why or why not.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I did get a chance to read Justice Thomas's concurrence the other week. I think it, prompted a lot of interesting discussion. In the Amazon article, I've really identified two potential pathways forward when thinking about these dominant digital platforms. One is enforcing competition laws and ensuring that these markets are competitive. And the other is, if we instead recognize that perhaps there are certain economies of scale, network externalities that instead are going to lead these markets to stay dominated by a very few number of companies, then we need to apply a different set of rules. And we have a long legal tradition of thinking about what types of checks can we apply when you actually have a lot of concentration, and common carriage is one of those tools. So I think fundamentally we need to kind of choose one of these paradigms and proceed accordingly.
But in your view, one or the other is going to be necessary to fix a broken system. Is that correct?
Yes, and I should clarify that some of these firms are now integrated in so many markets that you may reach for a different set of tools depending on which specific market you're looking at. So I think we need to be a bit market specific. But yes, overall, I think we need to choose one or the other.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much. I'll start with you, Ms. Khan. Senator Cantwell was asking about the problems for newspaper publishers and news in general. We all know what happened in Australia, where literally Google and Facebook tried to hold a whole country hostage. Didn't work, but they tried. And so are you aware of the bill that Senator Kennedy and I have with the companion with Representative Cicilline and Representative Buck, which has Senator McConnell was one of the co-authors last year, that allows the newspapers and the other news organizations to combine their negotiating power to be able to get better content rates. And just your thoughts on that.
Yes, I am familiar with it, and I should say thank you so much for the generous introduction earlier. I think these types of exemptions that allow coordination have traditionally been used by Congress in instances where you have deep asymmetries of power within the market. Historically, Congress passed an antitrust exemption for workers in order to allow them to coordinate, similarly with ag co-ops. And so in instances where there just seem to be deep fundamental asymmetries of power, I think that type of tool makes sense. Insofar as this is a market where we see that asymmetry, I think, it could be one step forward, certainly.
I liked your answer to Senator Wicker about how you have to look at different markets and different situations differently. And one thing, we're having a hearing this afternoon with Senator Blumenthal and Senator Lee and others on our antitrust subcommittee on the App Store market, which I think a lot of citizens would be stunned to know that, which I know you know, that for a lot of companies that decide they want and need to be on either Google or Apple's App Store markets, it's 30% off the top. It's somewhere between 15 and 30 that goes out of the pockets of really consumers and to these app stores, to these companies. And it's also kind of stunning to know that they are banned, companies that advertise in one of those app stores are banned from telling their customers they could get a better deal on their website. And I just don't know what argument you can make for that. So do you want to talk a little bit about this issue as Senator Blumenthal and I head to this hearing this afternoon?
Yeah, certainly it's a significant issue. And as you noted, it's really the source of the power is the fact that you have, basically these two main options, right? And so that gives these companies the power to really set the terms in this market in some cases. I think you're absolutely right that certain terms and conditions really lack any type of, beneficial justification. And so I think in those cases, we need to be especially skeptical and really look closely.
And then finally, something that's really relevant because we're trying to get this done quickly. Senator Grassley and I have joined forces and have a bill that restructures the fees that haven't been done since Hart-Scott-Rodino for the mega mergers and actually reduces them on some of the smaller mergers that are paid in order to give the resources to the FTC and DOJ antitrust, which are shadows of their former selves from even the Reagan era. This was supported by the Trump administration, this bill. At the very end of last year's Chief of Staff Meadows was trying to help us to get it done, as well as Macon Delrahim and Chair Simons, the former chair of the FTC, as well as many basically had gotten through the Senate impromptu. So talk about the need for resources to take on the biggest companies that the world has ever known.
Yeah, I mean, as you well noted, you know, the resources of the commission have not really kept pace with the increasing size of the economy, as well as the increasing size and complexity of the deals that the commission is reviewing. And so I think, you know, measures like the one that you're discussing could make a lot of sense to help out.
Very good. I'll turn to you, Ms. Kiernan. Travel and tourism, I'm one of the co-chairs of that caucus, and just very briefly, because I want to end with Senator Nelson, the brand USA, talk about that, the importance of that for promoting our country overseas, something Senator Blunt and I have worked on extensively.
Senator, I think helping the tourism and travel industry recover from the damages of the pandemic is a priority of the department, and I certainly look forward to working with you and the other members of the committee on that effort, and in particular, if there are legal issues that are impacting or delaying our ability to address these issues promptly, I would certainly commit to resolving those a priority.
Thank you. And then last, Senator Nelson, congratulations. You and I on the phone talked about your devotion to making sure more women and people of color get into science. And NASA is such a great vehicle, an aspiring vehicle for that purpose. And so they're no longer hidden figures. The title of that wonderful movie. Could you just briefly explain how important this is to you?
Well, it is. As the president has said, he wants the government to reflect America. And we're certainly going to try to do that at NASA, and I think we've already gotten a good start. I'd just point out one thing that you may not know. Way back at the beginning, you know, all the astronauts were test pilots. They were all men. They were white men. They had to be a certain size. That was coming out of Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. But when they got to the space shuttle, there was a lady named Nichelle Nichols who had become a tremendous symbol for the African-American community because she played Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. And she and NASA got together, and she reached out because African Americans didn't think that they would ever be selected in the application for an astronaut, whether it be a pilot astronaut or the mission specialist. And because she reached out affirmatively, she was able to get, so in that first class of space shuttle astronauts, there were quite a few women and quite a few people of color, very successfully, so that when I was privileged to fly in the early part of the space shuttle program, sitting in the right seat was an African-American Marine colonel, later a general, Charlie Bolden, who later became administrator of NASA. And our Capcom was Fred Gregory, the first African-American astronaut to fly as a pilot astronaut. So, but there's plenty of opportunity for expansion in the future, and we're going to try to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Senator Thune.
Thank you, Chair Cantwell, and thanks to all of our nominees. Congratulations on your nominations. And Senator Nelson, welcome back to the committee. It's good to see you here, even if it's on the other side of the dais. We accomplished a great deal during our time as chair and ranking member of this committee, due in large part to our excellent working relationship. And even when we did disagree, I always knew that I could count on you to work in a fair and straightforward manner to resolve any issues and to carry on our committee's business. I can't tell you how pleased I was to hear the news that the president had nominated you for this position. It is, you're the perfect person, supremely qualified, and I look forward to the possibility of working with you in this new role. And nice to see Grace. Welcome back. Good to have you here as well. And I am appreciative, too, of the fact that you were willing to come to South Dakota, and we took you several thousand feet underground to look at some work that's being done out there in the Black Hills. And, of course, I was privileged to have the opportunity to go with you to the Florida Everglades. I don't know, can you get that photo up or not? They're working on it. Okay. I think we have a photo of our trip down there, and when they get that up, we'll come back to it. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I might say when that snake turned around and started looking at John, he decided it was time to turn it over to the others.
Yeah, that's right. The instincts kick in. But anyway, great trip. I learned a lot about your state. Senator Nelson, as you know very well, NASA has inspired young people to pursue STEM careers. So becoming the next generation of scientists and engineers to propel the nation's space program forward, not to mention the numerous other societal and economic benefits associated with space exploration. And though South Dakota doesn't have a direct NASA presence, the state participates in both the Space Grant Project and NASA's EPSCoR program, which provide young people with opportunities to understand and participate in NASA projects. They also provide workforce development and education tools that benefit regional economies and advance the U.S. Research enterprise, particularly in rural states where such assistance can be otherwise unavailable. If confirmed, how would you work to build upon the success of these programs to improve NASA's STEM engagement?
To do, Senator, exactly what we did together in the past. The STEM grant program is very important to universities in every state, whether that state has a NASA facility or a center or not. The STEM program is just incredibly important in science, engineering, technology, and mathematics. Also, you mentioned the EPSCoR program. That is a recognition that some states don't get as much in federal spending as other states. And so it gives a nod to those states in the kind of federal spending that would come in this particular case, in those technology STEM fields. So I look forward to doing that with you, and I look forward to returning to South Dakota with you. Take me down into that abandoned gold mine again, 1 mile underneath the surface of the earth.
That's quite a place. We'd love to have you back. As you know, NASA works collaboratively with industry to deliver payloads and crews to low Earth orbit and eventually beyond. As a number of commercial operators and the diversity of their missions grow, could you describe how, if confirmed, you would work to ensure that NASA plays a constructive role in a cohesive and focused vision across both government-sponsored and commercial missions?
And that is building on the law that Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson described a while ago that we had passed back in 2010, which is the dual course. And it sets NASA on that course 11 years ago for the future. And that is, one course is the commercial operations. Instead of everything being done by NASA, have those commercial operations. It was originally thought that that was going to be just in low Earth orbit, such as the delivery of cargo and crew by commercial operators to the International Space Station, which is now an accomplished fact. With SpaceX just about in a few days to launch a crew again, and later in the year, Boeing doing the same. Others are supplying cargo. But having done that with the commercial operators, get NASA out of low Earth orbit and let NASA go explore. And then the question is the lander. Well, this is a landing of humans on the surface of the moon. And NASA just announced its down select on a contract on a demonstration of landing on the moon with a crew and bringing them back safely. And we talked about that just a few minutes ago, about that is described by NASA in their press conference, that it will be in 2024. And then there are so many other commercial contracts to come after that, depending on the progress of what is you want to do on the surface of the moon, but particularly in the preparation to go to Mars. Mars is the goal in the decade of the 2030s. And I think you'll see this dual activity continue as set by law in the 2010 bill.
Thank you. And great to have you back. Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I will yield back. My time's expired. I do want to, for the record, ask a question of Ms. Khan about her thoughts on the FTC's suit against Facebook. So we'll maybe get that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. And I think I'll follow up with a question for the record to Senator Nelson on this issue, because clearly I think there needs to be redundancy, and it has to be clear, this process of can't be redundancy later, it has to be redundancy now. So we'll follow up with a question on that. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Again, welcome back, Senator Nelson. I'm delighted that you will have this role, and really inspired by your opening statement. I want to ask a question about the sourcing of contracts by NASA, because so much depends on having a supply chain and a reliable source of the components and parts that go into these projects, and frankly make it look easy, when in fact it is a diverse combination of many, many contractors. In our call earlier this week, I raised the critical role that Connecticut plays in the aerospace industry. Companies like Collins Aerospace and Windsor Locks are working to develop, for example, the next generation of space suits. People take for granted, of course, we'll walk on Mars. Of course, we'll have men and women on the moon. But the next generation of spacesuits is going to be critical to enable them to do so. And as you well know from your experience as a United States Senator, there are many, many small companies that are simply looking for a fair playing field, competitive outlook when they are bidding in this kind of environment. So I know that you are sensitive to that challenge of opening opportunities for contractors and subcontractors, and that NASA is hoping to commercially procure, maintain, and service those kinds of components like spacesuits. Do you think that it's possible to source them competitively as opposed to just going to one source?
I do, Senator. And competition is always better than sole sourcing because you can get the efficiencies and you get the lower price. And so, indeed, and you talk about the supply chain, which is so critical. One of the things that has held us up on Artemis, on the big rocket, the SLS, that will launch later this year, there has been some slowing down of the supply chain because of COVID and because of natural disasters, hurricanes, et cetera. But it's just amazing in American industry how the supply chains provide what is needed ultimately to the product. And that's very important that we keep that going. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you. I really welcome that answer. Ms. Khan, you mentioned there are two paradigms. Paradigms are theoretical constructs or models, but the FTC is an enforcement agency, and the best paradigms, the best laws are dead letter if they aren't enforced vigorously. And the FTC right now has a complaint against Facebook. Will you be committed to vigorously enforce that complaint and other laws that are under your responsibility?
Absolutely, Senator.
And what do you see as the biggest challenge for enforcement when it comes to big tech? Is it the size of big tech, its resources and power, lack of resources on the part of the FTC? Can the FTC really enforce the law against behemoth corporations like Facebook, Google, Amazon?
I think one of the challenges is just the deep information asymmetries that exist between some of these firms and enforcers and regulators. I think it's clear that in some instances the agencies have been a little slow to catch up to the underlying business realities and the empirical realities of how these markets work. And so I think at the very least, ensuring that the agencies are doing everything they can to keep pace is going to be important.
And beyond the kind of marquee tasks of enforcement, big tech, and so forth, there's also the continuing challenges of everyday Americans. I'm reminded of one, Joey Robinson of Stratford, Connecticut, who wrote to me about her struggle to find legitimate PPE, personal protective equipment, to keep safe during the pandemic. She told me that after extensive research, she was still swindled. She wrote, quote, "They have my money and I have no PPE, no way to get them to refund me." After literally hours on hold and more than a dozen efforts in writing, in effect, she told me no one was listening, no one was doing anything, and there are at least 451,000 Ms. Robinsons out there, according to the FTC's own data. I would be interested in your views as to the responsibilities of the FTC to those kinds of everyday American consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this type of fraud and these scams are obviously a huge issue, especially during a time like the pandemic where they really have life or death consequences. Congress recently gave the Commission additional civil penalty authority with regards to unfair or deceptive practices in the context of COVID. And so I would hope at the very least that the agency would vigorously use that authority.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Senator Cantwell. Ms. Khan, I appreciated speaking with you before the hearing, and I know we had reviewed your experience on antitrust policy, and you mentioned that you got started studying these issues within the poultry industry context. In my own work, I've been pushing for more transparency and competition in cattle markets. Recently, there's been quite a bit of producer sentiment that the cattle market is on the brink of major vertical integration following trends that we have seen in poultry and pork industries. As we look at the forces that can lead to significant consolidation, what factors jump out to you as red flags that could indicate the tipping point for an industry, recognizing, as you mentioned previously, that this may vary by market?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Senator, and I really enjoyed our opportunity to discuss these issues. I think agriculture is a sector where we see some of the most extreme examples of these trends, where you both have, concentration and then vertical integration in ways that really leave farmers and ranchers dependent on, sometimes one entity. And that type of relationship also, of course, can lead to certain types of asymmetries and the ability to dictate terms. And so I think all of those, factors are really important to look at when trying to assess these issues.
If you're confirmed as a commissioner, how would you or how would this inform your approach to reviewing competition? And in this, how would you specifically look to mitigate harmful effects for consumers?
Yes, so the FTC has limited jurisdiction in the context of agriculture markets. It's kind of like retail onwards in the food supply chain. So at the very least, ensuring that the FTC is vigorously enforcing the law over the markets in the food supply chain where it does have authority, so that we don't have a situation where consolidation down here, upstream exacerbates consolidation. I think that'll be one important thing to focus on.
Okay, thank you. Senator Nelson, good to see you again.
Thank you, Senator.
NASA and the contractors that it works with invest heavily based on priorities established by Congress and carried out by the administration. In your opinion, how important is it for NASA and NASA's contractors to have continuity in its programs and missions, such as the Artemis program and the Space Launch System?
It's very important. And as I have tried to articulate, space is hard, and space takes a long time to develop these technologies, and this is cutting-edge stuff. So it didn't just start yesterday, it started years ago. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson indicated how it had started with the legislation back in 2010. So it's very important to keep this continuity going from year to year. Extremely important.
Okay, thank you. And again, good to see you. Ms. Kiernan, you listed the Department of Commerce's IT and cybersecurity posture among what you believe are the top challenges facing the department. In the wake of recent major cybersecurity breaches of federal agencies, could you please describe what you see as the most significant hurdles for the Commerce Department here?
Senator, protecting our networks is vital to our economic and national security. NIST's cybersecurity network has improved cybersecurity awareness and facilitated regulatory streamlining. Since I'm not at the agency, I don't have all the current details on the department's efforts in this regard, but if confirmed, I will make it a priority to work with the experts at NIST and in other agencies throughout the government on these issues.
If you are confirmed as General Counsel, how would you advise the department to approach these challenges?
Senator, I think that this is an issue that is one that requires government-wide responses. It will be incredibly important to work with other agencies throughout the government and to get the best ideas from experts in the private sector. Given the challenges that we face, we need to ensure that we are utilizing best practices and that we are reaching out to the experts throughout the government and in the private sector in order to bring those to bear.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Tester is next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for nominee Khan, and it goes kind of on the same line that Senator Fisher was asking questions. I'm in agriculture, and agriculture is the #1 industry in Montana, and feeding people is really, really important. In fact, I think you can control people with food more than you can control with anything else. And we've had the luxury of having an incredible production agriculture economy that has fed the world. Not just recent years, but for some time, we've watched consolidation creep into agriculture in the chicken industry, in the pork industry, in the beef industry, in the grains. We even see it in pulses and crops like that. This isn't Amazon. It's not Facebook. It's not new technology. The big processors have been doing this for decades and decades. And And I would say that no administration, Democrat or Republican, has tackled this in my lifetime. And I've seen this consolidation result in rural communities drying up, no competition in the marketplace, both on the when you sell goods and when you buy inputs. You're totally locked into a group of 3 or 4 people who could basically go on a golf course and determine what's going to be paid in the marketplace. Capitalism is not working. So my question to you, nominee Khan, is you're a smart person. You know about consolidation. But I think the reason that many of the administrations in the past haven't dealt with this is because these companies control a lot of money and they control a lot of power. And they can put that influence into the reelection campaigns of many people that sit on this panel and a whole bunch of others. How are you going to deal with the consolidation issue, and how are you going to deal with it from a political standpoint?
Thank you, Senator. As you noted, I think there's a long history of recognizing the ways in which concentration of economic power can translate into political power, and so I think those types of dynamics are ones that we face across the board. In the context of agriculture more specifically, it's the Justice Department that primarily has jurisdiction in the antitrust domain over some of these markets. I also think that the Packers and Stockyards Act is a real hidden gem of a statute that in some ways was really designed to really head-on address some of these consolidation issues in the context of agriculture. So, reviving that statute and its enforcement would be another step forward. I also think, the agriculture markets are a really interesting example of some of the additional effects that concentration has, insofar as concentration of the food supply can also lead to all sorts of fragility issues, which can, come to the surface, in particular during times of crisis. So absolutely, I think these are really, really important issues.
So I want to carry on in this line of questioning really quick, nominee Khan, and that is that you said, for the most part, this is in the Justice Department's realm. Look, what I have seen in my 14 years here on the Hill is in many different issues. Broadband's a prime example. When you have many different agencies that are in charge of putting fiber in the ground, or when you have a couple agencies in charge of dealing with consolidation in the food, they point the finger at one another. What do you intend to do on the FTC in this realm that is legal within the law for you to do?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, the FTC's jurisdiction over agriculture markets was actually stripped after the FTC published a big report on the meat packers in 1920. So when the FTC did try to go hard here, its jurisdiction was stripped. But as I mentioned earlier, the FTC does have jurisdiction over kind of downstream in the food system, so especially in the context of food retail, grocery, and so insofar as sometimes concentration or consolidation in one part of the supply chain can exacerbate consolidation in another part, I think at the very least ensuring that the FTC is fully enforcing the law over the food markets that it does have jurisdiction over is going to be important.
Well, I appreciate that. I will tell you, as somebody that's involved in production agriculture, I would hope that we would get some folks that would tackle the agribusiness, multinational agribusiness companies that, quite frankly, I just think that they've not allowed capitalism to work the way it should, and that's my opinion, and it will be my opinion until I learn otherwise. I have a second left, so I just want to say it's good to see you, Senator Hutchison, and it's good to see you, Senator Nelson, and good luck to you both in whatever your endeavors are. And I know, Nelson, it's NASA, and I expect you to move the launch pad up to Montana that's in Cape Canaveral, but if you don't do that, I'm still going to vote for you. And Kay, it's really good to see you. Take care, you guys.
Thank you, Senator Tester. Thank you for those questions. I want to echo his comments. I see this all the time in pricing of agricultural product in the Pacific Northwest. There's just too much a concentration of power in setting the price. And we're either going to look for new competition, or we have to figure out exactly what that market influence is. That is just too, so the channels in the horizontals, the verticals there are just, putting too much pressure on the price. So anyway, okay, we're turning to Senator Moran.
For this hearing, I had an opportunity to meet both with Ms. Khan and with Senator Nelson, and I appreciate those conversations. They were valuable to me. I don't have any questions for you, Senator Nelson. I wish you well, and I look forward to working with you both in the Commerce Committee and the Appropriations Committee in regard to NASA and our future space opportunities, including aviation and aerospace in Kansas. Let me ask Ms. Khan a question about social media. I've become increasingly concerned about social media companies that promise to be free and open marketplace for ideas, but they're not, in my view, upholding those promises to their consumers. I've introduced the Promise Act that would require social media companies to implement, operate, and disclose information moderation policies and would prohibit a social media company from making a deceptive policy statement, quote unquote. Violations of this law under that legislation would constitute an unfair or deceptive act or practice in violation of Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act. What do you see as the role of the FTC in making certain that social media companies are abiding by their public statements and policies when it comes to content moderation?
Thank you, Senator. I think, as I mentioned earlier in the exchange with Senator Blumenthal, I think the information asymmetries are so deep, and that at the very least, we really need the Federal Trade Commission to be using its information collection capacities to really try and mitigate some of these information gaps. Social media, we have black box algorithms, proprietary algorithms that can sometimes make it difficult to know what's really going on. The FTC did, in the last couple of years, use its 6B authority to start trying to get some more of this information. So hopefully, that will provide some more transparency. But in general, I think, the Commission's information collection authorities can be useful here.
Thank you. I think our legislation is a means by which we can deal with activities that are contrary to stated policy by the companies without necessarily dealing with Section 230, which has significant consequences for entrepreneurs and small business startups. So I look forward to further conversations with you and the FTC if this legislation in particular moves forward. Let me turn to Ms. Kiernan. SolarWind's cyber attack exposed serious deficits in the country's cyber defenses. The Department of Commerce was one of the first departments to be identified as being breached as part of that attack. SolarWind's compromise was as much an attack on our, economic security as it is our national security, and vice versa. My view, it demands a swift and deliberate response by federal agencies. One aspect of improving cybersecurity of the federal government is IT modernization. My MGT Act, which was passed in 2017 and funded, allows departments and agencies to upgrade their IT infrastructure. How should the Department of Commerce strengthen its cyber defenses? What role does IT modernization play in this effort?
Senator, protecting our networks is vital to our economic and national security. I think IT modernization is an important component in trying to address this incredibly difficult, complex, and important issue. And if confirmed, I will make it a priority to work with you and other members of the committee on this issue.
I thank you for that. Let me ask you one more question, Ms. Kiernan. The privacy shield, the ability to transfer data across international borders, is crucial to a broad range of companies in Kansas, all sizes, all industries, and to consumers who rely on global services to help them work, learn, and connect with others from home. Until last year, the EU Privacy Shield served as a privacy protective way for companies to transfer data from the EU to the US. That framework was invalidated in July. Can you commit to supporting efforts to ensure that companies can continue to transfer data across international borders, and to supporting efforts by the US government to reach a new agreement facilitating data transfer EU to US?
Yes, Senator. Cross-border data transfers is essential for American businesses, and if confirmed, it will be a priority for me to work with the department and other government officials to reach a solution that supports American businesses and national security.
I thank all three of our nominees, and I say hello to Senator Hutchinson as well. Best regards to UK. And thank you, Madam Chairperson, for the opportunity to ask my questions.
Thank you, Senator Moran. We're going to go to Senator Hickenlooper. And then following him will be Senator Blackburn.
Yeah. Am I off mute? Yes. First, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for putting together or coordinating and moderating this good forum, very useful. And your quote at the very beginning of John Perry Barlow, he was an acquaintance of mine, and that notion that if you're not paying for something, you're the product, is appropriate, I think, in so many ways here. Anyway, I want to ask a question for Senator Nelson, and specifically President Biden's skinny budget request for NASA asks for a robust $2.3 billion in funding for Earth science programs. I maybe unfortunately have a master's in Earth and environmental science, and I recognize that the climate crisis is real, and I think that the NASA researchers have capabilities and they could be an important partner in this fight. And I think their research into alternative fuels, solar power, battery storage, could all be important to our efforts to address climate change on Earth. So, Senator, I wanted to ask, what additional capabilities would President Biden's proposed budget increase for NASA's Earth science programs? What would that increase provide?
It's a very important increase. You can't mitigate climate change unless you can measure it. And that's NASA's expertise. Understanding our planet gives us the means to better protect it. And I know this is something that you feel very strongly about, Senator, especially in the way that you conducted yourself as governor, trying to protect your resources there in your state. So this is where the administration has provided for a robust increase on Earth science, and I think it reflects exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I think it's very exciting. And kind of along that line, expanding it into the overall aerospace industry. As you know, Colorado's one of the nation's aerospace leaders, with many engineers, manufacturers, and suppliers calling our state home. I know that the commercial space industry has contributed to many of NASA's most critical programs. How would NASA, under your leadership, continue to work collaboratively with the commercial space sector?
Well, it's not only critical, it's essential. And in fact, that is what is happening. And kudos to your state that produces a number of those commercial companies. As we have described from the outset, the law that we are operating under has NASA going down a dual track. It's been operative for 11 years, and for the foreseeable future, it's the same. And it hits directly at the question that you ask. On the one hand, commercial companies are allowing NASA to get out of low Earth orbit, save for NASA's participation in the International Space Station, and go explore the heavens. And the commercial companies, as evidenced, for example, by the success of the delivery of cargo as well as crew to the International Space Station, something that NASA had done exclusively before, but as those systems were developed with heavy NASA participation, because of the safety factor when you put humans on board. Therefore, that is being done as we speak, as we look to the future further out in space, back to the moon and on to Mars. We're going to see commercial participation, and we're seeing that as we speak in what was announced last week in the down select in a competition for the first human landing on the moon.
Right.
But there's a lot of commercial activity that is going to then be followed on, competition.
I agree. Senator, let me cut you off just because I want real quickly. I'm out of time. This always happens. And I wanted to also just quickly, very quickly, ask you about National Space Council and their ability to play a role as interagency coordination on space policy issues that in many cases transcend federal agencies. And just about out of time, I am out of time, so be very concise.
As a matter of fact, I support the National Space Council and was delighted to see that apparently the president has decided that he wants to continue that.
Right.
Whatever it is, you need a forum like that because space is not uniquely to NASA. It's not uniquely to the Department of Defense. Space is involving everybody, and you need that coordination among agencies.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I just wanted, I appreciate, I was very excited when I saw that the White House had confirmed that, and I just wanted to hear the excitement in your own words. Thank you all, and I yield back my time.
Thank you.
I'm out of time.
Thank you. Senator Blackburn, then Senator Markey, and then Senator Scott. So, Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Senator Hutchison, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. And Senator Nelson, I so enjoyed my conversation with you and discussing a little bit about a mutual friend that we have and also discussing your enthusiasm for NASA, but I think more importantly, your understanding of the processes and the goals for NASA. So briefly, and for the record, what I would like for you to do is talk for just a little bit about China, about China's push into space exploration, how they utilize that civil military fusion in order to try to beat us at the space race and beat us as we look at our military, because China is out for global dominance. So if you'll just touch on that.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we have known and is articulated presently by the president, there is a threat China poses in basically getting a lot of our secrets and getting a lot of our technology and invading a lot of our privacy. Now, when you take that global concern that we have and you bring it to the space program, then you have to be concerned about the same thing. China has said that they want to have a landing of humans on the moon. More recently, China has said that they're going to link up with Russia to put humans on the moon. I think there's a lot more that has to be done by saying it and actually doing it, because space is hard. But I think we need to be concerned about that. And
well, I agree with you on that. And I tell you, I think we're going to hold you to your commitment of back to the moon by 2024 and to Mars by 2030. And I also, for the record, want to state how much I appreciate your focus on the public-private partnerships and making certain that we are cost competitive as NASA moves forward with different ventures. So thank you for that. Ms. Khan, for just one question for you. If you had been at the FTC during the Obama years, what would you have done differently in the merger review process?
Senator, I think over the last few years in particular, there's been a lot of evidence that's come to light that suggests that in certain cases there were missed opportunities for enforcement actions. As I mentioned earlier, I think part of that was due to some of the information asymmetries. Part of that was also because there was an assumption that digital markets in particular are fast moving, and so we don't need to be concerned about potential concentration in these markets because any exercise of power will get disciplined by entry and by new competition. Now, of course, we know that in these markets, you actually have significant network externalities and other reinforcing advantages of data in ways that make them much more sticky, such that, we have to be much more vigilant relating to these acquisitions. So, I think in hindsight, there's a growing sense that some of those merger reviews were a missed opportunity.
I would like for you to submit in writing a more complete answer as to what you would have done differently. We know what the problems were, and you know that I have concerns about your background and lack of experience in coming to that position. So why don't you just submit to me a written answer in that regard? Ms. Kiernan, thank you so much for the time. And just very quickly, I've got 25 seconds left. If you will talk a little bit about where your focus will be on spectrum policy.
Thank you, Senator. I enjoyed our time to visit before the hearing. As you know, the NTIA has an important role in the interagency effort to develop a government-wide spectrum plan, and I think that we need a government-wide spectrum plan that will allow us to address both the needs of the private sector to have spectrum for 5G, as well as the government's needs for spectrum to satisfy its needs and its ability to perform its responsibilities.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chairman. That completes my questions.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Next is Senator Markey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome back, Bill. Your leadership is really going to help our country in an enormous way. Thank you for being willing to serve once again. NASA has more than 24 satellites and instruments observing key climate indicators. NASA is the premier agency for observing and understanding changes to the Earth. Could you talk a little bit about how you would work to ensure that NASA is providing all of the capabilities which are necessary to fight the climate crisis?
Thank you, Senator, and I enjoyed talking with you at length in our Zoom call. As I said to Senator Hickenlooper, you can't mitigate climate change, which is happening, unless you measure it. And that is uniquely NASA, being able to measure from all of the instruments that NASA designs, builds, and puts into orbit. And thus, by that, understanding the Earth, that allows us the opportunity to protect it. This, of course, is one of the major thrusts of President Joe Biden. And NASA is uniquely positioned to try to help. If I may venture, I'm not going to take a lot of time, but just to give you one personal vignette. When I had the privilege of flying 35 years ago, with the naked eye from that altitude as we orbited the Earth, you could see the effects on the climate. For example, what we were doing to mess it up. I could see over the Amazon, I could see the color change from that altitude of where they were destroying the rainforest, or coming over Madagascar. They had cut down all the trees. You could see the result of that because there was no topsoil to hold the soil when the rains came, and you could see at the mouths of the river all of the silt that were flowing out into the bright blue waters of the Indian Ocean. So now we're so much more prepared to measure what is happening. Thank you for the question.
And by the way, and that's why NASA is going to be so important. And it's why Senator Duckworth and I have introduced the Environmental Justice Mapping and Data Collection Act so that we can see where the harm is occurring and then direct, as President Biden wants to do, the funding towards those communities, towards those places that have suffered the most environmental injustice. So we're just really looking forward to partnering with you on that. And Ms. Khan, I recently sent the Federal Trade Commission a letter highlighting evidence that the EdTech company Prodigy Education engaged in unfair and deceptive practices. Research shows that Prodigy's online math game manipulates children and families into making purchases by constantly telling kids what items their friends have bought in the game. And in the game, a child user who bought a premium membership floats on a cartoon cloud, while a kid who didn't buy a membership walks on a dirt path. So can you please commit that if you're confirmed, you'll work to use your full authority under Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act to ensure that we hold companies accountable when they attempt to manipulate and monetize the activities of children?
Absolutely, Senator. And I think some of these dangers are heightened, especially given the ways in which the pandemic has rendered families and children especially dependent on some of these ed technologies. So I think we need to be especially vigilant here.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, I authored the Child Online Privacy Protection Act back in 1998. And again, you have just bad actors which are out there always seeking to manipulate and take advantage of children. Will you commit that if you are confirmed, that if there are any updates to copper, that you're going to prioritize protections for children, not loosening them as many companies seek to achieve in order for so that they can exploit these kids for their own monetary benefit?
Senator, in my view, the previous rule should be the floor, not the ceiling. Not being at the commission, I'm not privy to what the current status of the COPPA review is. More generally, as we think ahead about the future of kids' privacy, I see your Kids Act as really an important framework as we move forward.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Markey. Senator Scott.
I want to thank Chair Cantwell, and I want to thank all of our nominees for being here. Senator Nelson, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see a Floridian nominated for NASA, and thanks for taking the time yesterday. We talked yesterday about the importance of Florida to NASA. Can you talk about what you think in the role of NASA that you can do to help continue the growth we've seen in Florida over the last decades?
Yes, indeed, Senator, and it's a very robust future. As we see more and more of this activity, now humans, Americans, on American rockets launching from American soil, that is all happening specifically at the Kennedy Space Center and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We're going to see more of the commercial activities. We're seeing, for example, Blue Origin that has now contracted with the Air Force and now the Space Force. And they're not only developing a very complex launch pad, but they also have a rocket manufacturing facility that they have leased land from the Kennedy Space Center, and it's a big operation. So I think there's a plethora of other companies that are going to be both preparing, manufacturing, preparing, and launching from that part of Florida. Now, why the middle part of Central Florida on the East Coast? Because the rotation of the Earth gives you that little extra boost that you don't have to spend of fuel as you go into orbit. Why south? The closer you can get to the equator, likewise, you've got that Earth rotation that helps you going into Earth. So I think it's going to be a very robust future for specifically Florida, but other states as well.
Yeah, I think Bob Cabana has done a great job.
He's done a terrific job.
What they've done on the privatization there is it's remarkable what's happened. We talked yesterday about Communist China, and you talked about the Wolf Amendment, which restricts agencies like NASA from partnering with China. Can you talk about that, the importance of that?
Yes, and we just addressed that in a question with Senator Blackburn, and thank you for pointing out. Congressman Wolf passed an amendment that is law, and it basically says that you don't cooperate in space unless there is a sign-off by the FBI that this is not going to threaten national security or the national economy. That is the law, and NASA will abide by that.
And you think it's important to continue to hold China accountable?
Indeed, and I expanded further in my comment with Senator Blackburn, and that is that you just better be concerned, because now China is getting together with Russia and saying they're going to go to the moon together. That's a long time until that happens.
We hope. It's nice to see your family here too, by the way. So congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to our nominees, congratulations. Senator Nelson, good to see you again, sir. I want to just ask about this issue. I'm a big fan of NASA and the space agency and all that's happening. And I always ask our nominees, probably remember when I asked our previous nominee here, to me, there's so much we can be doing to inspire our youth. One of my favorite movies is The Martian. Hollywood doing something really great for our country, which is a good thing. Inspiring young Americans. There's so much going on. We had a group of Alaskan students that had their essays that were part of the Mars Perseverance rover. So these are Alaskan essays on Mars right now. It's pretty cool. What can we be doing in that area? You have a lot of experience, but to me, one of the most important things we need to be doing is inspiring our youth. It's STEM education. It's all the great scientists. There's so much that we can do. I think we're just scratching the surface.
Indeed, Senator, and thank you for your enthusiasm with regard to space.
I love it. It's great. I'm enthusiastic.
There is so much that we can do by igniting the imaginations of those kids, and often you ignite that imagination through the space program in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the proof's in the pudding of what happened after the original Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. And we saw a whole generation of mathematicians and engineers and technicians that came out of that exploded our advance as a country compared to others on the planet. And if you all decide to approve me, this is one of the areas that I want to really pour the juice to in NASA, as requested by the White House. The president has given a boost in his recommended budget to the STEM area. And it's just nothing like space that can get kids excited.
Good. Well, I think you'll have a lot of good partners, Democrats and Republicans, will want to help you in that regard. I think it's a huge opportunity. I see it everywhere, so we should get together and work hard on that. I look forward to doing that with you. Ms. Kiernan, Senator Scott and I later today are going to go down on the Senate floor and try and move our legislation that has been really just a result of enormous frustration that we have with CDC right now. And CDC, particularly as it relates to cruise ships, Senator Nelson might care about this issue as well, has this very myopic view on health, that it's only looking at the virus no matter what the health impacts are on other elements of our economy, communities. In my state, if we don't have another cruise ship season, we can do it safely. We're going to put thousands, if not tens of thousands, of my fellow Alaskans out of work. CDC doesn't care. I have talked to them. I have worked with them. The good news is I've talked to the Secretary of Commerce, who seems to care. I need your commitment, if confirmed, to work with this committee, to work with all of us on the proper balance between health, economic health, and dealing with this pandemic. Right now, the CDC is a myopic organization that looks at just one tiny issue. And when you have thousands of people out of work or being put out of work, that has health impacts hugely in communities. Can I get your view on that?
Yes, Senator. I think helping the tourism industry recover from the effects of the pandemic is a priority of the department, and you certainly have my commitment to work with you and other members of the committee and officials within Commerce to try to identify ways to resolve the issues that you have identified.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Khan, I want to ask you very quickly, I know there's a lot of issues on tech that you're focused on, that you've been focused on. There's been some recent events that have drawn attention to Major League Baseball's unique, judicially created antitrust exemption. Why does Major League Baseball need such an exemption, especially when we see other sports leagues thriving without an antitrust exemption? You're an expert in this area. Do you have a view on that one?
Yeah, Senator, my sense is that generally Congress has viewed it as appropriate to grant exemptions when there are deep power asymmetries in the market. I'm not sure that the MLB would really fall into that category, so I can't really, from the traditional set of criteria, I don't think it necessarily, makes sense, but maybe there are other justifications that people thought were appropriate.
So you're a skeptic of that judicially created exemption? Is that what you're saying to me?
I think exemptions are most appropriate, again, when you have deep asymmetries such that like one side of the market needs to coordinate or come together. I don't really, right off the top, see what the asymmetry is with the MLB, like where are they powerless relative to whom? So that's the kind of question that I would ask to try and figure out if it's appropriate.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Lummis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to tell Senator Nelson how much I enjoyed meeting with you. It's great to see you again, and we had such a great visit. I'm delighted that you are the nominee for NASA's head, and look forward to working with you. I do have some questions for you today. Do you think we need rules and policies to ensure that large commercial constellations are designed and operated in a way that ensures a very low aggregate collision risk level over their lifetimes?
Yes, ma'am. And what we are having so much infrastructure in space that we have a serious problem about some of that infrastructure colliding. And of course, you get a collision going at 17,500 miles an hour, you've got a problem. The problem has been exacerbated by the fact that the Chinese developing an ASAT, an anti-satellite weapon, years ago, launched it to destroy one of their satellites, and so doing, just blew it to smithereens with thousands of pieces littering space as space junk. And so the U.S. Air Force tracks all of this, and as a result, when you get thousands and thousands of pieces, it becomes increasingly problematic. Trying to warn, for example, the International Space Station that they may need to alter their orbit in order to get out of the way of this piece of space junk. Likewise, sensitive satellites, both defense as well as commercial and civilians.
So given the critical assets that NASA has, what level of risk caused by these commercial operations would NASA be willing to accept from these commercial activities?
Well, I think you put your finger on something that has to be done in the future, and that is the development of ways that when there is, say, useless satellite and say it's a commercial, yours is specifically commercial, but it could be a government satellite as well. If it's dead, then there ought to be a provision for getting it down, degrading its orbit, of which it then gets into the upper atmosphere and will burn up on reentry. I think that's something that's already started, and it ought to be accelerated.
Well, thanks for those answers. You know, part of NASA's success in recent years has been the focus on the partnership between government and the private sector. Can you talk about how you plan to continue this partnership between NASA and the private sector as NASA administrator?
Yes, ma'am. Continuing what Kay Bailey Hutchinson and I started 11 years ago, setting NASA on the dual course of commercial operations in low Earth orbit and getting NASA out to go explore. And now part of that being the Artemis program, of which you see these commercial operators that have been competing. That just announced by NASA. I'm not privy to the internals of that, but what was stated in the newspaper is going to be a continuing source of working together in a cooperative way, especially when you put humans on board, because NASA's got to be involved to make sure that it's safe.
One more question. What will you do to further expand the Artemis Accords and ensure that the U.S. not only leads in the technology, but also leads in the policy realm?
Well, I'm going to try to continue to get it expanded and accepted by other countries that have not become a part of the Artemis Accords. And that is, for example, that the moon should be a place that is not militarized, that the moon ought to be cooperative among nations as more and more nations participate in lunar activity.
Well, thank you so much, Senator. It's, as I said, so great to see you. I think it's delightful that former NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine is so enthusiastically supporting your nomination. I look forward to working with you and want to thank you for your willingness to take on this assignment. Madam Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Lummis. I'm going to ask Senator Peters to take over. I think Senator Lee is next, and then followed by Senator Peters, but he'll be chairing the committee while I run over to vote. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to all of you for being here today. Ms. Khan, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. The Sixth Circuit has previously ruled that former FTC Commissioner Paul Rand Dixon had to recuse himself from a hearing based on the conduct in which he had been involved where he had conducted an investigation as a member of the staff on the Senate Antitrust Subcommittee prior to becoming a commissioner. In light of the fact that you had worked on the House counterpart to that committee, the House Antitrust Subcommittee, and its report on digital markets, wouldn't you be bound to follow that precedent by recusing yourself from any investigation into Facebook, Amazon, Apple, or Google?
Thanks for the question, Senator. Let me say up front, I have none of the financial conflicts or personal ties that are the basis for recusal under federal ethics laws, and I would be approaching these issues with an eye to the underlying facts and the empirics and really be following the evidence where it
Would this create any of the appearance of impartiality issues given your work for the subcommittee?
Senator, insofar as there are instances where defendants before the commission petition to have particular commissioners recused, those cases are resolved on a case-by-case basis. There's no categorical decision about that. If it were to arise, I would seek the guidance of the relevant ethics officials at the agency and proceed accordingly.
But you don't see the Sixth Circuit cases applicable to your instance?
I'd want to be more familiar with all of the relevant facts, but
I think that case involved not any personal financial connections he had, but rather his work on the Senate Antitrust Subcommittee.
Right, there are a set of recusals required under federal ethics laws where you are making categorical determinations before taking office.
Gotcha.
With regards to prejudgment, as I mentioned, those are really resolved on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And I've appreciated our previous conversations. I wanted to follow up with you on a couple of things, including your philosophy on the FTC's, any rulemaking power that you believe the FTC may wield. So I've just got a quick series of yes or no questions. Should agencies exercise rulemaking powers, only those rulemaking powers that have been expressly granted by Congress?
Insofar as the FTC has express authority under 6G of the FTC Act, I think that would be appropriate.
Right. But it shouldn't exercise rulemaking power in the absence of rulemaking power having been granted.
I don't have a philosophical view on that. I'd want to think about it. I think in the context of the FTC, I think that question is obviated by the fact that there is express authority in the statute.
Can the FTC utilize rulemaking power to get around precedent with which it disagrees?
I'm not sure. I mean, Section 5 there's a standalone basis to Section 5, and there's, court precedent noting that the contours of Section 5 are not limited by the antitrust statutes. As we discussed yesterday, there are going to be some questions of first impression here, but generally, there are going to be several checks on the FTC if it does go down this road.
Now, you mentioned Section 6G of the Federal Trade Commission Act. Are there any limits that the Commission, to what rules the Commission could promulgate under 6G in order to define what it means to engage in unfair or deceptive trade practices or unfair methods of competition?
Yes, Senator, as you know, the contours, the precise contours of unfair methods of competition rulemaking has been debated at the Commission for decades. There are a series of cases from the 80s where the FTC adjudicated and, courts came up with a few standards relating to coercion or oppressiveness. In practice, though, I think adjudication has not been very successful as a mechanism for defining the contours, and former Commissioner Josh Wright in particular has also written about this, so I think there are some real questions still remaining.
As we've discussed in the past, there is some debate currently underway about our antitrust laws and about the consumer welfare standard, which we've discussed a little in the past. It's always important for us to evaluate our laws and to ensure that our standards for assessing whether particular behaviors and mergers and acquisitions are illegal or should be illegal, whether they're harming Americans. Do you think the consumer welfare standard is lacking?
In my academic capacity, I have critiqued the consumer welfare standard. I've questioned whether it really is a good proxy for competitiveness, especially in the context of digital markets.
So when assessing whether a merger or a particular course of conduct is anti-competitive, do you think courts and enforcers should take into consideration any impact that the action in question might have on innovation?
Yes, absolutely.
Consumer choice also?
generally speaking, I mean, the statute says, substantially lessen competition. Competition is not defined in the statute, so it's, it's up to the agencies and the courts to really figure out what this means.
Price, market access, effects on quality, all should be taken into account.
Exactly.
So and all that's great to hear. I think that's fantastic. All of these things all are already in play, and they play a significant role in our current antitrust law, and they're an aspect. They're all features of the consumer welfare standard. It seems to me that our laws could meet the need if only enforcers brought the appropriate facts and the appropriate evidence in the appropriate cases to the table. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see my time's expired.
Thank you, Senator Lee, for your questions, and to each of you here before us, congratulations on your nomination, and thank you for your willingness to serve your country and our country. These are big jobs that each of you are been nominated for, and we look forward to this process and wish you the best should you be confirmed. Senator Nelson, it's a particular joy to see you here today. It's very fitting to see you here at the Commerce Committee hearing, just in a different position than I'm used to of seeing you over the years. But it's great to see you nominated for this position, something that you are eminently qualified to do, and your passion for space is legendary, and it's wonderful to see you here. It's great to see your wife, Mrs. Nelson. Wonderful to have you here. I think I saw your daughter here as well, so it's a family affair. Senator, one thing that always struck me in working with you is you talked about your experiences in space and the fact of the vision you had from space as you looked down on the planet and saw this blue, beautiful planet in space, and no lines between countries, just one Earth together. And that to reminded all of us that we're one people and we're on a very small planet in a very large universe, and that we need to come together and try to dispel some of the partisan divisions that tend to dominate far too much here in this place. So I know you bring that spirit of bipartisanship as should you be confirmed as a NASA administrator, and certainly something that we need throughout government. My question, though, to you and statement is that NASA is, of course, famously known for the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, which you've had the privilege of representing as a senator, the Johnson Space Center in Texas. Certainly, it's a nationwide effort, but we have some great efforts in the state of Michigan as well that supports this. This is really a country coming together for this mission. It includes places or companies like Atlas Space Operations up in Traverse City, to Futuromic in Warren, working on SLS rocket and many other projects, and other places all across the state. It's always a danger. I now mentioned a couple of companies. There are a long list of those companies that are there, not to mention the work that we have with our universities as well. And NASA has dozens of companies all across every single state in the union, supplying parts to NASA's deep space rocket, the SLS, Orion spacecraft, all of the different projects going forward. We discussed earlier this month that you would be willing to come to Michigan, and I want to invite you again to come to Michigan to talk about how we deepen that supply chain. I think it's critically important that we harness the innovation that exists in these small companies all across our country. And I want to kind of hear your thoughts. How do you see deepening the supply chain so that small companies have a reasonable shot to do business with NASA and bring their incredible innovation to the forefront for your efforts?
It's essential to the supply chain, and there are preferences for small businesses. But the strength of this country is our ability to manufacture by bringing in all of these supplies. And when you get to the complexity of a spacecraft, you're having to draw from many different places, and they have to be just exactly how they are designed in order to work. And so I look forward to coming back to Michigan. I've been there several times in my former capacity as senator, and look forward to visiting with you specifically some of your space community?
Well, I will look forward to that, and hopefully we will do that soon, if confirmed, get you into the state so you can see firsthand some of the incredible work that's being done there. I currently sit as chair of Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, and we're very active in federal procurement and want to make sure that as the federal taxpayer money is being spent, that it is always a priority to spend that money in the United States to employ domestic workers. We have, without question, the skills of American workers are the best in the world. We've got the best workers, engineers, scientists here that we want to make sure that that money is focused into our own country. So my question for you as administrator, to the extent that is permitted by law, how will you work to prioritize domestic supplies for NASA?
It's a very important part for President Joe Biden in his Build Back Better and Buy American, and we will operate accordingly at NASA in as much as is possible.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for your answers, and look forward to working with you if confirmed in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Peters. Thank you for holding down the fort here and for getting us through more questions. I do think we have a few members left who still want to ask questions, but I'm hoping in the next 15 or 20 minutes we'll be able to wrap up the hearing unless we come back with a big demand from comments already made. So Senator Cruz, if you're ready. Senator Cruz is next, followed by Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to each of the nominees. Senator Nelson, good to see you. Congratulations on your nomination. You and I spoke a few weeks back, and as I told you then, as I've said publicly, there are not many Biden nominees about whom I am enthusiastic, and your nomination is a notable exception to that. And I'm enthusiastic because you and I have worked together for a lot of years, and I know that you genuinely care about the mission of NASA, that you genuinely care about space and exploration and American leadership in space. And you and I together as chair and ranking on the Space Subcommittee have worked for a number of years, have authored bipartisan legislation together focused on continuing America's leadership in space, focusing on maintaining NASA's position as the preeminent space agency in the world, and focusing on ensuring also that there are not dramatic discontinuations of ongoing projects within NASA, that we have both seen with any change of administration, there is a risk to NASA, a risk that billions of dollars and thousands of man-hours will be thrown away as the agency changes course dramatically. And so we've worked together, whether the transition is to a Republican administration or a Democratic administration, ensuring that there is a continuity that continues the tremendous leadership and progress we're seeing in space. So I'm very glad to have your nomination. I look forward to our continuing to work together in now different capacities.
And Senator, I want to thank you for your continued leadership. After I left the Senate, you, Senator Cantwell, Senator Sinema did the NASA authorization of 2020. It not only did that continuation that you're talking about, but also trying to extend the life of the ISS. And so thank you for that.
Well, absolutely, and that's extending the life of the ISS is something you and I have worked together for a long time on. I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway, which is I assume you support the full utilization of the ISS beyond 2024, or at least through 2030, and as long as technology allows the ISS to be safely utilized.
And we are seeing some of the fruits of the labors over the years, not only of international cooperation on the International Space Station, but some of the research that is occurring, and I'll just pick out one. As a result of pharmaceutical research on the station, we now scientists have developed the way to more effectively insert the drug Keytruda in cancer research?
I think that's right. And one area that I've been very focused on that I look forward to continuing to work with you on is how to incentivize more commercial development on the ISS in space, and how potentially to create a revenue stream for further exploration to come from the commercial developments that the federal government has facilitated. And I think there are lessons in terms of how universities have handled it, incentivizing innovation and developing revenue streams from it, that I think on the space side we could learn important lessons from. Ms. Khan, congratulations on your nomination as well. As you know, I have deep concerns about big tech and the power of big tech, and I believe the FTC should be doing much more to rein in the anti-competitive abuses of big tech, to rein in the blatant censorship and the hubris demonstrated by big tech. What are your views on the risks posed by big tech, both on a competition side and on a consumer protection side, and in particular the risks posed by censorship and imposition of their views upon the free market of ideas?
Senator, I've been quite public about my concerns about concentrated power in the context of digital markets. I think on the competition side, we're continuing to see a whole range of potential risks. One that comes up across the board is the way in which being able to dominate one market gives these companies, in some instances, the ability to expand into adjacent markets, and the self-reinforcing advantages of data make it much easier to capture an entire ecosystem. I think on the consumer protection side, there's some really interesting questions to be asked specific to behavioral ad-based business models, insofar as, these business models really incentivize endless vacuuming up of data. I worry that in some cases, some of these companies may think it's just worth the cost of business to actually violate privacy laws. So those are some of the concerns that come to mind. And I think, it seems like these are growing increasingly bipartisan concerns.
Well, I look forward to working with you on them, and I will say in particular, I think there's a lot more the Commission can do in terms of promoting and ensuring transparency from big tech, which right now is incredibly opaque. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Chair Cantwell, Ranking Member Wicker. Thank you to all the nominees for your continued commitment to public service. And of course, Senator Nelson, I so enjoyed the conversation that we were able to have last week. And so I want to talk about women in space and STEM. Senator Nelson, we have the Artemis program, of course, and NASA is aiming to put the first woman on the moon. So as Senator Klobuchar noted earlier, incredible women at NASA have paved the way for more women in space, but we still have a huge gap in representation. Research has shown it's critical to offer STEM opportunities and workforce development at an early age, especially to reach girls and other historically underrepresented groups. Of those students who eventually work in the aerospace and defense workforce, 71% of young professionals report that they first became interested in those careers in grade school. So NASA conducts STEM education, outreach activities at all levels, K through 12, internships, all of it. And like Senator Thune, I'm particularly interested in the NASA EPSCoR, the Joint Federal State Program designed to allow more states like Nevada to participate in space and in aeronautics. So during our meeting last week, earlier today in the hearing, I was pleased to hear your continued support of that program and others. So Senator Nelson, what other investments should we be considering for NASA to ensure that today's school children, those kids in the 3rd grade today, that we inspire them to reach for the stars, I guess, if you will, and we want to be sure they're well equipped. So what do you think we can do that? How do you think we can best do that?
Indeed, we can inspire this generation of students in ways that otherwise they might not get inspired through the space program. We have seen this in the past. We saw that happen after the Apollo program to the moon, for we saw that suddenly for an entire generation, kids were turned on to science and technology and engineering and mathematics. So the president's budget, as recommended to the Congress, is having a significant increase in STEM in little old NASA. If you all give us the resources, if I'm confirmed, then we want to really pour the juice to this to get these STEM grants out to your universities. That's going to be very important. And then, of course, you say, what are techniques that we can use? You know, we in NASA readily use our astronauts and our retired astronauts as a means of delivering the message, which students seem to just, it fires their little imaginations. And we want to try to continue that too.
Well, I can tell you, I was one of those kids who watched all through the 60s. We were glued to the TV for every space launch, for landing on the moon. And hey, I became a woman in tech, so maybe it had an impact on me there. But I'd like to move on quickly to data security. So Ms. Khan said, I'm a former computer programmer, systems analyst. I understand firsthand the importance of data, cybersecurity. A pandemic that forced all of us to transition to work from home, to telework. Of course, hackers took notice, and they've impacted every sector, from healthcare to school to business, you name it, unfortunately. So last year, I introduced several bills aimed at protecting and strengthening our cybersecurity capacity, such as improving telework cybersecurity for small organizations or small businesses hit particularly hard, our school districts with ransomware and the like. And so we need to continue to do that. And we need to work on those collaborative efforts and guidance through support through CISA and the FTC. So Ms. Khan, how can FTC better partner with private entities to build a stronger defense against data breaches? How will you promote that working relationship?
Senator, let me say right off the front, I think, the harms of lax data security are immense. And I think what we've seen over the last few years is that this is no longer just about identity theft anymore. There are real national security implications insofar as we've seen some state-sponsored hacks as well. With regards to the work of the FTC with private groups, my understanding is that the Commission has been doing as part of its education and outreach campaign, specific work with small businesses. I haven't had the opportunity to see any empirical data on the efficacy of that work, but I'd look forward to learning more about that.
Well, I look forward to working with you on that, because our small businesses really need a lot of help to do their own cyber hygiene and continue to maintain, upgrade, and patch the commercial software that they use. It's particularly important in this day and age. And thank you for your willingness to serve. I believe my time is up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. And I think that concludes the number of Commerce Committee members who wish to ask questions. I do have a question for the panelists that we are making standardized in our request to nominees. And if you could just give me a yes or no answer. If confirmed, will you pledge to work collaboratively with this committee, provide thorough and timely responses to our requests for information as we put together and address important policy issues, and as you appear before the committee when requested?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Well, I think this has been an excellent hearing. We've had great participation from all of our colleagues. We covered a lot of information in a few-hour period of time. I appreciate the nominees on their questions. The hearing record will remain open, though, for 2 weeks until May 5th, 2021, and senators will have the opportunity to submit questions for the record. We ask that the nominees return their questions to the committee in a timely fashion, and so that we can move forward, obviously, with the processing of your nominations before this committee and on to the floor. With that, we're adjourned.